All right, it's 5:30. I'd like to call tonight's Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, September 27th to order. We could have a roll call, please, Tammy.
Ron Liberty.
Here.
Kendra Osmus.
Here.
Jacqueline Grumler.
Here.
Nubs Ashbeck.
Here.
Brett Waller. Linda Yingling.
Here.
Paul Prue. Chad Krieger.
Here.
Kevin Blake.
Here. Could all join me and stand, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the Merrill Area Public Schools Board of Education meeting. MAPS respects the role that our elected board members serve in the function of our board meetings. Board members and administrators are committed to working collaboratively to provide our students with the highest levels of achievement. This meeting is a formal event and professional conduct is the expectation for all in attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Next on our agenda is public comments to the board. I did not have any of the pink sheets turned in. Tammy, Shannon. All right, we'll move right on to recognition from the board. Tonight, the board is recognizing any new staff members from the district. We did have the opportunity to chat with you beforehand and get to introduce ourselves the best we could as time allowed. What I would like to do is, instead of me trying to remember everyone's name, I would like to start with Justin. If you could stand, state your name, what building you primarily work in, and your role. So if we could start there and work our way through would be great.
Sure. Justin Marcraft. I'm a middle school art teacher. Yeah, it's great to be here. It's a big change from high school to middle school, but I'm very much enjoying it. And then what an amazing facility. Is that it?
My name is Bree Krutz. I'm a new high school counselor to Merrill High School.
My name is Kim Studding. I'm at the high school and I teach their business classes. So this semester is Intro to Business and Personal Finance.
I'm Pam Warren. I am teaching 5th grade at Prairie River Middle School.
I'm Mary Wilhelmy. I'm the new 3rd grade teacher at Washington Elementary.
Andy Haas, regular at 8 Washington. Hello.
Victoria Carroll. I'm the new behavioral instructional coach at Kate.
I'm Casey Hansen. I'm the building secretary at Kate.
Thank you all. We did want to recognize you and welcome you to the district, and hope everything is going well. I know it's pretty early, but it's nice to see you here, and thank you for joining us to have that dialogue with the board as you were able. And, do you have anything that you'd like to add, Shannon? Great start to the year so far.
Very good start to the year. We've got some great hires and we're looking forward to working with everybody. So they've had a chance to be in some of their classrooms already, so it's been great.
All right, thank you very much. You're welcome. Next, in fact, I will turn it over to you. You had a couple things to say.
Thank you for coming.
You are free.
My husband's having kids 2 nights in a row.
Have a good night.
So October 1st through 7th is Wisconsin School Board Appreciation Week, and we won't be back together before now in October 1st through 7th. So I just wanted to, we wanted to recognize our board tonight, and on behalf of the students and staff and our families, express our gratitude to each of our school board members for the work that you do, the commitment. You always come prepared, you have great questions, you care about our students, and you make a big impact on our community. So thank you for that. I personally regularly shared how appreciative I am of our board and the work that you do, so we're very grateful and fortunate in this community to have such a strong school board. So again, thanks for all that you do, and happy Wisconsin School Board Appreciation Week. In the bag is a very expensive gift. Enjoy this.
Yes, gasoline.
Yeah, gas cards.
Thank you, Shannon. Next, we will turn it over to Brooke Rudai and Max Black, our student board of education representatives from the high school.
Hi guys, welcome back. I'm excited to report that the first few weeks of school at MHS has been filled with tons of excitement. This is on, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. To start the school year off, our Link Crew team got together to put together an amazing first day of school for our incoming freshmen. The class had dress-up themes for the group, as well as super fun and creative icebreaker games. This past week, our Link Crew leaders reunited with their freshman groups for what we call Link Up. They talked them through any questions or concerns they had within their first few weeks of school. It was a great time for underclassmen to form genuine connections with upperclassmen and allow them to feel welcome at Merrill High School. As mentioned, with the start of the new school year comes the start of fall sports at Merrill High School. Our students have worked extremely hard over the off-season as well as the summer to make the best of the new season. Our girls volleyball team is 14-12. Our football, tennis, cross country, and boys soccer teams have also been doing their part in contributing to the athletics in Merrill High School. With all of these athletics going on at MHS, it has been great to see the amazing support of the student body at these games. As all of you know, homecoming is a huge deal at Merrill High School. Our students take great pride in planning school-wide events such as Powder Puff, Powder Buff, dress-up days, float building, skit creating, and as well as window painting and so much more. This year, homecoming will take place on October 7th, where students and community members will watch our Blue Jay football team play the Rhinelander Hodags. Our students are anxiously waiting this coming week of Blue Jay activities.
Earlier this morning, grades 9 through 11 took the pre-ACT with their advisors. This is a great opportunity for the students to get a relative idea of how the ACT will go when the time comes. While the underclassmen took this test, the senior class got the chance to sleep in, and most of them spent that time practicing for Powder Puff as well as other homecoming activities. As mentioned, our students have taken a more active role in school spirit, not only in Merrill High School, but the elementary school. Our high school football team has been going over to the MAPS elementary schools to welcome them into and get them excited for their day. This has brought a ton of excitement to the littles in our community.
Excellent. Board members, any questions for Brooke or Max?
No, not a question, but just I think it was detail the fire chiefs bet on the Anigo Merrill game. The loser had to wash the other one's fire truck, and Merrill lost.
Right. I did have one question. We always hear things, and I do appreciate all the updates on the activities there, but sometimes we get caught up either in social media or with calls or texts or emails about as policies change. So I want to put you on the spot a little bit with the backpacks and the cell phone policy adjustments. And if you don't mind sharing your thoughts as students, Brooke or Max.
Okay. So it's been okay. Like, it's been pretty good. The teachers have been really understanding with giving us time to get to our class, and if we're like a little bit late, it's whatever. And I think the hardest part was teaching kids how to do their comms. Like, I'm a senior and I do not know how to open my locker unless I ask somebody the first day. I'm like, I do not know how to do this. And then trying to help like the Link Crew kids, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't really help you. But other than that, it's been really smooth, and teachers have been super understanding. And the Chromebooks are nice because you can, everything that you would normally do with paper, you just do on your Chromebook. And we don't need to worry about, you can take your notes on your Chromebook, you can draw on your Chromebook, you can do everything on it. So it's super nice to be able to just have it all in one place. And I thought that the lockers would be a huge adjustment, but they really have been okay. Like, since school's been paperless since COVID, it really hasn't made a huge impact either way, negative or positive.
Yeah. So with phones, like this year, my classes, I seem to have work till the end of the hour. But the phones, it's not a big deal. The only time I really used my phone last year was like if I had time at the end of class, just so I could like listen to music or something. But that's really not that big a deal. It's not as big adjustment for me. I think, like in all, it's caused a lot of people to start, actually paying attention.
And you get to talk well, and it's not like, yes, obviously, duh, but you actually, you start to talk to everybody in the class, it sounds dumb, but when you're going to put your phone in the caddy, you, cross paths with people that, sit on the other side of the room that you don't normally, run into. And like, it sounds dumb, and I know that it's like, duh, we should take phones away. And I thought it would be really bad, I honestly did. But it was it's been totally fine. And it just gives you an actual chance to like, most of the time when you're sitting in class, the people that you're Snapchatting are the people that are sitting right next to you. So it's like a little bit, you get to actually talk to them, and you actually get to know like what they're doing, and if they have a question, you can ask them. If you have a question, you ask them. And it's nice to actually like, I feel like I've built more relationships in the like last 3 weeks with new people than I did all of last year. So I'm a fan of it.
She said it all.
I do appreciate your feedback on that. You know, a lot of times we hear one dimension of that, right? It's nice to hear all the perspectives on it. So thanks for sharing. Any other?
No, that was excellent.
And 20-some years ago, we didn't have those.
I was going to say that, but I'm like, I'm not even going to say it.
No, so we don't need to pick on you at all. We were very close on the wall. Yeah. Wow.
Just string across from one window to the other.
I appreciate the honesty. That's what I appreciate.
Yeah.
Just sharing it.
Like, I didn't know what to expect at all. And of course, like, you first hear, like, they're taking your phone's backpacks away. And that's not, like, a positive response normally. But once you actually got into it, it really wasn't that bad. And I don't know anybody that feels super passionately that it was a bad idea. Like, it doesn't really affect people that much. The first week maybe, but you get used to it.
Fair enough. Thank you guys. Like I said, we do appreciate all the information you provide and the candor, as Kendra pointed out. Next on our agenda tonight is the administrative reports. As you're aware, as those are provided to us in advance, if we do have questions, we can ask prior, or we can put the questions in front of everybody this evening for the good of the order tonight. So I'll turn this over to Superintendent Merrill. I believe we even have a learning opportunity tonight.
We do. So we have with us Amber Holiska and Allie Libby and Deb Mollendorf. We're going to talk a little bit about 7 Mindsets, which is our new SEL curriculum that just kicked off this fall, and by all indications it's going very good. So I asked them to come in and give us a 20 minutes presentation on where we're at with 7 Mindsets. So thank you for coming in.
All right. Thanks for having us. We're here to talk about 7 Mindsets. I'm Allie Libby. I'm the new associate principal at the high school. So I think I've come and talked to you guys in the past about different things. Last year was maybe about teen mental health first aid. So I'm happy to be here to talk about 7 Mindsets.
I'm Debbie Mollendorf, and I'm the district mental health navigator.
I'm Amber Holiska, Director of Pupil Services and Special Education.
So Shannon asked us to talk a little bit about 7 Mindsets, not only for like what's going on in the district, but also as like an education, because we're really trying to implement it in the community and get people to know about it, so that we're all kind of speaking a similar language when we talk about beliefs that we have about our students and those beliefs that we want our students to have about themselves. So we're just gonna, before we like jump into what is 7 Mindsets, if you can go to the next one, Shannon. We're going to talk kind of like, where did this come from? It was certainly not like let's look up one SEL curriculum and just pick one. There was a lot of thought and effort that went into figuring out and vetting this program and really deciding on what it should be. So this work came from the Comprehensive Mental Health Academy, which I think, we've kind of talked about that in the past, but the Comprehensive Mental Health Academy was a group of mostly pupil services members, along with Karen Baker and Debbie, that looked at the comprehensive system that school districts have. So looking at all the different layers of how to support kids' mental health needs, all the way from universal Tier 1 SEL curriculum to Tier 3 groups that you might have, to funding support, to sustainability of those efforts. So it really looks at a comprehensive approach. The way that they do that is through something called the SHAPE assessment. So that's a really detailed, specific breakdown of all of the mental health supports that you have within a school district. And we did one in fall and in spring to look at what do we offer and how can we enrich the services that we provide our students. Out of that, one of the biggest needs that we saw was a universal Tier 1 SEL curriculum. So there are pockets of guidance lessons in elementary schools, and there were some other efforts that were happening. At the high school we have Raise Your Voice Club, but those aren't necessarily a universal program that we have all the way from PK all the way up to 12. So that was something that we felt like was really important and had been talked about pre-COVID, but then things kind of fell apart, and we never really decided on a program. So we saw that there was a need, and we started to look at what would be the best program for our district. So some of the things that when we were looking at the different options, so some people might be aware of like Wausau School District does Leader in Me. That's the program. Like I live in Wausau, and you'll see all the time they have like Leader in Me shirts and stuff. Other districts do other things, but we wanted something that was a pre-K through 12. So all the way from Pine River School for Young Learners all the way up to high school seniors, that it has a curriculum for implementation. We wanted it to be easy to use. Teachers are strapped for time, for resources. We really wanted a curriculum that would be very easy to implement so that they would feel comfortable and that they would buy into it. And then it also had some built-in evaluation tools. So it's based on CASELs, which is a set of standards behaviors that they want students to have, and that we could evaluate it, because we should never implement a curriculum unless we can see growth within our students. So we started last school year of collecting some data from our teachers. What are some, we assessed them on 28 different behavior standards and asked them, what are you seeing? Are you seeing these kids with these skills, or is this something that we have to work on? So we saw that we needed to work with kids on their social emotional learning. So what are the behaviors and expectations that we have? What are those beliefs that we want to them to instill within themselves? And we saw that this SEL curriculum could really impact it. We had last school year from every building throughout the district, we had like 4 or 5 staff members come to meet with us so that they could look at the different curriculums that we had and talk about 7 mindsets, get their feedback. What do you think will work well when we implement this in the building? What are some of the things that you think we might struggle with? What are some of your ideas for implementation? We really wanted feedback and buy-in from the teachers, because it's being taught by teachers. It's not being taught by school counselors or school social work. It's being taught by the teachers. Over the summer then, we had the good fortune of having 2 coaches from every building that worked with us for 2.5 days to really dive into the 7 Mindsets curriculum. We met with 7 Mindsets. Actually, Anago has 7 Mindsets too. We saw it within their curriculum and really felt like 7 Mindsets would be the best approach. It is a DPI approved program, so for funding you have to be able to have a DPI vetted program, so we really felt like that was the one that we wanted to go with. And then over the summer, the coaches were able to really learn about the program, actually create all of their slideshows. Some were already printing out the materials so that it was really easy to use. Then we started back in August, actually our August kickoff day. The half day was a district-wide 7 Mindsets training from the national trainers. And then we had 2 in-person building training days that was experiential in the first day, that they played activities to learn about it. And then the second day was that they were working in the portal, learning how they would teach the lessons. We really wanted them to feel well equipped for when we started teaching lessons. So
I would just add to that too, just appreciate your support. I know we came in August talking about the need for those building level coaches to kind of move this work forward. So as Allie referenced, we did have some teachers that came in the summer when we were able to say we have the availability to look at some coaches per building for the school year. All of those individuals reached out initially and expressed interest in continuing the work. So it really helped in terms of kind of that seamless transition and getting those August MSI days and professional development off to a really good start. And we've seen, and Debbie's kind of worked, and Allie too, kind of check-ins on a routine basis with those coaches from the building, and so far things are going really well. So when we kind of talked about we want to make sure we're implementing this to fidelity, also the sustainability in building that, we've seen really good support so far with that model and having those leaders within the building. So just wanted to provide that initial feedback too. So this is just, the next slide just kind of gives you a visual of what the 7 mindsets are. So the other week I was on my first community scan and was able to talk about this as well. So if you listen to it, you kind of heard, and I'll kind of repeat or capture what the different 7 mindsets are. But this really is what the students, again as Allie referenced, PK through 12, will be learning in those lessons. And each of the 7 mindsets has kind of broken down into some subtopics. So they'll really kind of dive into and get some more specific work. As we mentioned, it's a really evidence-based curriculum, so they looked at a lot of research and said, really what is making kind of the most successful or happy people? What are some of these shared characteristics that they're seeing? And from that compilation of research, that's how these kind of 7 mindsets came to be. So it's really focusing a lot on that positivity, being able to set goals, really looking at, we know each student has different strengths, so how can we use their strengths? As you see that we are connected, and then kind of taking those strengths and seeing how can we work together to build with one another. And a lot of talking about too, just in those moments of if we're having hard times or resiliency, how can we kind of build off of there, focus on what we can control now, and move forward to the future. And what's really nice too is they're really tailored, and Debbie will kind of show that after here. We'll give kind of an elementary example and then a high school example, so you can see how these actually play out when they are taught to students, that they're really at that level and appropriate for their learning and needs. Some specific, I guess a little bit just more on the implementation to give you more information. So there's 30 lessons, so really no students will be repeating lessons throughout the school year. And as students transition like from their 9th grade to their senior year, they'll never repeat lessons. There's new lessons for each grade. So that was another really great thing in terms of when the team looked at the vetting process of they want to make sure that there's new content and material so that students can continue to grow and build off of. We really recognize the importance of having this be district-wide, as we've talked about. So there is a plan for each week. Every building is going to be focusing, or each month, on the same mindset. So there is flexibility within each building in the schedule of where this fits best, but at least there's that unity for students. If they're coming home talking with their family, if there's an elementary student and a middle school student, that they're learning these same pieces at the same time across the district. And then I think Allie kind of mentioned a little bit before too, we really kind of want to work on, these are life skills for our students that they can take as they continue throughout their education here and as community members in the future. So we really want to help kind of build this language and these life skills and get this information to parents so they have strategies or resources or tools to use to kind of speak about this as well as different kind of community resources and agencies. We are hoping to continue to collaborate and share to work on these skills for students.
So we wanted to give you a chance to see a couple of the lessons. So we're gonna click on one of the lessons that's in Everything is Possible, and it's the Act and Adjust. And so we're gonna show you the pre-K lesson, and then we'll show you that same lesson at the high school so you can kind of see. So again, you can see that the material is very much age appropriate for that age. And again, this is where the staff go in, and this is what they see and how they use it. They have a lesson plan that goes with it that gives them the talking points for each piece. So again, this is the Everything is Possible, Act and Adjust. So Shannon, if you want to click on that and start. So again, every lesson kind of begins with an activity, an energizer to get students excited about the lesson that they're going to be participating in. So this one is a positive dance break. So it gets the preschoolers up and moving and dancing. And so again, you'll see that is different at each of the levels. So the next part of each lesson is kind of a hook. So why is this important? What are you going to be learning? So again, it's that key message for the student about that particular lesson that they're going to be, or that skill. Then next, for the pre-K, it tends to be a video of a book that they're reading related to the topic, or another video that gets them engaged in the activity. Again, very appropriate to the age that they're at. And then it will have some discussion questions that the staff can use to kind of pull out the key points of the video that they've just seen. And so they can talk about what problems did Grace solve by helping others. And again, that's part of what's in the video that they see. So again, Shannon, you can just click through. There's usually 2 or 3 discussion questions followed by an activity that gets the student engaged in doing something to practice that skill for that lesson. And then at the end, there is a challenge. And that's kind of a challenge to the student of doing something between this week's lesson and next week's lesson. So what would we like you to work on? How do you practice that skill? How do you incorporate that into your everyday life? And so that's kind of the challenge. So again, that's just an example of a pre-K lesson. And then Shannon, if you want to go to the high school one. So again, you can see it's the same mindset, same sub-lesson of act and adjust. And again, the high school talks about a kickoff, so it might be some kind of intro activity, it might be a team building, it might be whatever, again, an energizer to engage the students. Followed by, again, some community building activities. And again, that's an option. A staff member could choose not to do that, say they don't have the amount of time to do it in that lesson, they might skip that in that particular week. But again, it gives them some tools that they can do some connection activities with the students. And then again, it will have the hook or a quote sometimes in the high school or upper grade level that relates to that topic. And then that hook, again, at their age appropriate level, followed by sometimes it's a video, sometimes it's a news report, but usually it's of a famous person or a news report that relates to that particular skill. So a real life example of how that skill has played out in someone's life who is successful. And then we'll have discussion. Again, you see that key kind of discussion following, so processing, giving the staff the questions to kind of process that video. And then it will have an activity should be coming next. Sometimes at the high school and middle school level, journaling is something that they do a lot of. So we have provided the middle school students and high school students with journals. So that'll be something that they'll be doing throughout this activity or these lessons. And again, it gives the staff member a way to debrief, so a chance for them to be able to share among their students, and then an activity. And then again, it will have that challenge at the end. So kind of, again, something for them to walk away with and be able to apply and practice. Any questions anyone has? It's just a quick viewing of a
Can you
couple
talk
of
about frequency?
Yep, so again, there's 30 lessons. Every school is 30 minutes of a lesson. Some schools, like I know Ryan at Frizzle, is breaking it up into little chunks throughout the week, so they're spreading out over like 4 times. I think at Kate Goodrich they are doing something similar, maybe 2, but it's 30 minutes of content for every single grade level per week. And that'll be 30, so we'll cover up most of the year. We also did a survey last week, was it? Yeah, last week with all the students too, to look at the data. So they were assessing those 28 characteristics, and then we'll do it again at the end, just hopefully see some growth in students, what they're saying about their skills.
In addition to the student survey, we'll also be surveying the staff and comparing that to the spring survey that we did. So again, pre and post of both staff and students will be part of this.
Buy-in been good?
Yes, yeah. I think that my personal was like that they really tried to do something experiential, so I will just talk about the high school. So there were the 7 mindsets, and they had 7 activities, and they turned it into a survivor theme. So they divided up the staff of all the high school into 7 different teams, and like they created flags that it was like their team flag that had to somehow connect to 7 mindsets, and they were on tribes. So they really tried to make it fun, and then they had activities, like one of them was, someone had to be blindfolded, and the partner had to navigate them through like a course with stuff on the floor they couldn't touch, and it was about teamwork and collaborating, and I think it was connected to the We Are Connected one. So we really tried to make it experiential instead of like sitting down with teachers and saying, here's what you have to teach, and you can get a lot more buy-in if people experience it and really can understand what they're talking about. So I think that really set it off well. Besides, there might have been a couple mishaps that maybe Megan's school, there was someone that maybe ran into a wall on the in their obstacle course, but I think that really helped of like the buy-in. Like when if they get it and they feel it, the teachers, they buy into it a lot more. You know, of course, at the high school, we have some kids that are like, why do we want to do this and why isn't this? But we're like, just stay the course. If you believe in it and if a teacher believes in it and they sell it, the kids will come along. They will get it. At first, it's always a little bit like, I don't know if we should be doing this, but it will come. So.
And we had our first check-in meeting with the coaches at each of the buildings on Monday last week, and they were all very much reporting back that staff are pretty solid behind this and engaged and excited about this opportunity. And again, it's fairly easy for them to use. There's not a lot of prep that they have to do, and the coaches are providing all of the tools or supplies that they might need. So it's all prepared for them and in their mailbox the week before. So it makes it very easy for them to pick up and do the activity.
Any questions for the excellent presentation? Thank you. Next up, we have our Director of Curriculum and Instruction report. Amanda Patterson is here. That report focuses on professional development that took place prior to the school year. Is there any questions or comments for Amanda? Then we have the Director of Special Education Pupil Services report. It focuses on the Wayne County Health Department annual report that was provided by Merrill, who is here as well. Any questions or comments on that report? Then we have the Director of Business Services report, enrollment and aid certification, expenditure, P-card usage, etc. The audit. Dr. Strike is here to answer any questions if there are.
Oh, yeah. I apologize for being late. Curiosity, using additional support staff for teaching, what is that meaning? Is that, are they going to be teaching or just assisting at a program that was set up for them to take care of, much like a substitute teacher?
Yeah, the one situation that we did that was in special education, or one example at Kate Goodrich, we just are not able to find special education teachers. However, students still have IEP needs and support, so we added 1.5 aides. So there might be a larger caseload for those special education teachers, but using support staff to still provide support.
Oh, okay.
Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just echo that, but to add, so they've done a lot of creative problem solving in terms of, we're not using, I guess, the aides to supplant what a teacher would be doing. Like, we're shifting kind of the responsibilities. So as Kelly said, caseloads are a little bit higher, but then we're aligning the certified staff to, okay, where do they need to make sure they're meeting minutes and actually providing those services to meet their needs, and then where can some of those other responsibilities fall under the support staff. Certainly the end goal is still looking to be fully staffed with certified staff, but just kind of looking at those opportunities and solutions for now.
The shortage of subs, is that, are we able to go out of the area and find a sub for this or not? No? Okay.
Well, we're utilizing, for another shortage area, we are utilizing a sub. However, many of our subs are retirees and restricted with a number of hours, so we have to be creative with that as well. So we're using a substitute at the middle school, for example, for a special education teacher. Another opportunity, though, next Friday is a job fair at UW Stevens Point, and all of their semester graduates that will graduate in December, required to attend. Both Amber and Amanda will be in attendance, and they do have a special education program there. So we know that they also have a band program. We're looking for band teachers, so we have an opportunity there too to hopefully catch them as soon as they're done in December, if possible. So we will, use that as well.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the Director of Buildings and Grounds Transportation update. Dale Bergman is here this evening. His report focuses on building construction updates, some of the projects, transportation, etc. If you have any questions for Dale, he is here. And then lastly is my report, focuses on the WASDA Fall Conference that I was attending last week. And then I do have a slide about making sense of the low revenue ceiling that I'm just going to talk about here briefly. So when I was at the state conference, I got an email from Boardman Brickhammer and asking me to kind of explain really the concept and more of the math, I think, of how we went from needing 2.5 million to really now not even maybe needing a referendum at all. And so I sent a pretty lengthy, maybe dense response back that might not have been the best read. So I just kind of wanted to go through this slide here quickly tonight, answer some questions with really kind of two goals. One is to make sure that we're all understanding it and we're all kind of on the same page. And then secondly, this is a message that we're going to have to get out to our community soon. And so if you can kind of put on your community member hats and give me some feedback about, what does the average person on the street need to hear to this explanation. So if it's okay, I'm just going to run through a couple things. The short version is the state came through with the money. So that's the short version. But I'm going to kind of walk through the steps. So as everyone knows, coming into the 23-24 school year, we had referendum funding of $2.5 million each year that was ending at the start of the school year. And so we had 2 operations referendums in 22, one in April, one in November, both failed. That led us to have to prepare for the 23-24 budget. We did that with some assumptions like we always do. One of the assumptions is that we didn't know what the state budget was going to be, but we assumed that it would be $200 per pupil increase, as well as some other costing forwards and rolling some costs forward. And so we came up with a range of about $2.5 to $3 million that needed to be cut from that. We've seen this. We spent kind of a challenging winter dealing with these kind of things, but we got there. And so we made those cuts. Then in July, the state budget actually came out. And as we all know, we got a per pupil per year revenue increase of $325 in the first year and an additional $325 in the second year. And so that was good news because we had planned for 200. I should add that those increases, we don't get the dollar for dollar benefit of those increases because we are a declining enrollment district. And we have a hold harmless clause which really helps us in most years. But kind of the way I always kind of describe it is that we kind of have to pay that back before we use what's left, if that makes sense. And so it's not a dollar for dollar for us, but that was what the budget was, $325 per pupil per year for the next 2 years. And then as we're all familiar, they increased the low revenue ceiling from $10,000, which we were at, to $11,000. However, we're familiar also with that law that's out there that says unless you failed an operations referendum, then you were penalized for 3 years. So that's kind of where we thought we were at, and we're at actually, at that time. So then, taking that 325 and the additional 325 the next year, we did some forecasting for 24-25. And so we rolled, take everything we have now, roll it forward with a 3% inflation increase. We increased our health insurance based at 6%. Our current numbers, the range we're expecting is about 4 to 8%, so we kind of split it in half. And that resulted in us expecting a deficit of about $800,000 to $900,000 for 24-25. I should add, you take our budget. We have about a $35 million budget without all the extras that go in. 3% of that is $1 million, and so it's like you just roll that forward. That's a new $1 million worth of expenses. And so, anyways, we had 800. We were expecting an $800,000 to $900,000 deficit. We started having some very surface discussions about referendum. It looked like we'd be in about the $1 million range. We kind of kicked that number around for the survey and the operations referendum, and we were kind of, that was just kind of like not formalized, but that was just kind of a number sitting out there. Then about 13 days ago, it felt like the day of the annual meeting, but it wasn't. It felt that way. DPI calls Dr. Stripe and says, "Hey, we're going to give you the low revenue ceiling increase." So we were at that $11,000 mark per student, which again, we don't get a dollar for dollar increase because of that whole harmless situation that we're in, but it does result in another 1 to 1.4 million increase for 23-24 this year and 24-25 next year. And so you take that $800,000 to $900,000 expected deficit that we're planning on, get the new $1 million, and it's kind of a wash in rough terms. Now, and so that was why we feel like we are no longer in the business of needing an operations referendum, at least in the short term. So we think that, we don't think, we know we'll be coming forward with a balanced budget for 24-25 that may even include a small surplus. The key, and Dr. Sork and I have talked about this, is we've got to be wise with the 23-24 money. So we have about an extra $1 million now to spend in this year's budget. But think back to the ESSER days and those kind of things. We have to be smart with it, and so we're going to start some of those discussions very shortly, including meeting with the principals tomorrow, and then having a staff engagement moving forward. One of the things that I should kind of caution is that, so for us to go from $10,000 on the low revenue ceiling to 11 is noteworthy. That 325, that next 325, that's got to catch up to that. So that's our rate. We don't know what the third year, the year after the biennium budget, that's a question mark. So we're not expecting much of an increase, certainly in the next 3 years. So what we have is what we have. So we want to kind of stay within that window. And I share that because we may be suggesting a referendum in 3 years. But for today, we're pretty confident that we have to. So that's kind of the time frame. That's kind of the math. I'll open up for questions and/or questions that you think people on the street might ask when or if there's a better way to pitch this. Not pitch it, but share it.
What prompted DPI to make that change on the penalty?
I think it was DPI's lawyers looking through the language of the state budget and saying this is what the budget says.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, they would turn around 180 degrees in midstream, so to speak.
Yeah, so I haven't really followed up since we got this nugget of good news, but I do believe that there's kind of a bipartisan effort to get that law still taken off the books. So they're still proceeding with that. Whether it happens or not, I don't know. DPI and their attorneys seem to think that this is good. And in fact, they sent Dr. Strike a new revenue spreadsheet with the new numbers.
Give you more money to spend?
Yeah, give you more money to spend. Yeah, that's why you got the fancy gifts.
Tammy put her heart and soul in those.
So I'm a little confused how we went from asking the second time for 2.5 to now you were only going to ask for $1 million.
Yeah, the big difference is between our assumption going into that, like that second bullet point made an assumption that based on past history was that the state would give us $200 per student and not change the low revenue ceiling. So when it came through at 325 and then another 325, especially that next jump is really big, that kind of changed us, took us from that needing 2.5 to needing $1 million. And then when the low revenue ceiling money came in, then that just went all out.
So now do we, for next month, do we have to put something on the agenda to cancel? That we're not going to, because I thought we made a motion to go to in April to a referendum.
I don't know if we've ever formally made that motion. That is, so the time frame in my mind would have been, we would have started having these discussions now, we would have come up with a question, had the law firm actually create the question, does it pitch it to you? Well, we would have had the discussion, and then based on those discussions, created the question brought back to the board. We'd have to have it to the clerk, I think, early January for an April, which we may still be doing for the capital side of it, if we, depending on what the survey looks like. So it's super good news. It's very frustrating. It's hard to explain to people, but we're not giving it back.
No, I have comments. Obviously, I had a question, so I have a couple comments and questions, perhaps. And mostly my questions were driven by the community. So understanding of what the distrust they've had for the district and the clear picture that we need to paint for everybody, and also being able to explain it as a board member if asked. So I get it. I've been to the meetings. I've sat through the meetings. I can understand it. I mean, it's a great gift that we're being given, and it's amazing news. But I will tell you that I feel from interaction with the community that, and I know we're not to the survey part yet, but it's kind of contradictory. We've told them what we did, right, on the survey. Okay, that's great. And then we have this part where we're like, we don't need to ask for a referendum anymore. And how do you, to your point, how do you explain that? Because they feel like we're asking for $2.5 million 2 times in a row, saying that we need this, and hey, now we've cut 30 positions, but look, we don't need, like, I have this nagging suspicion that there's still going to be some misconstrued voting or opinions, and so I don't know how to be transparent, I don't know how. I mean, no one showed up to the annual meeting, so we'll be honest, like, how do you get the message out there? And I don't know.
And so we haven't formally done any messaging yet on this. This is kind of as public as it's gotten now, with the exception of
the annual meeting, right?
Yeah, the annual meeting. Yeah. And so we will, based on the feedback that I get from you guys tonight, we'll start developing that message. And I don't know if it's a video link or Facebook or however we do that. And maybe you start as simple as, we asked for the money, you said no, we made the cuts, the state came through, and it worked out.
Yeah.
You know, as a starting point. I think it might have been a little more awkward had they said yes, and now we gotta, you know,
Truth, yes.
But I mean, that's an easy one to solve too, but I mean, then people be like, oh, now you got all this money, or you have access to it, so. We will have to be pretty wise with how we message this out, and I would say probably pretty soon.
And I would also think, and I'm sure you've thought about this, but as you stated, being wise about the extra money that we now have over this next year, I would say even documenting that so people know exactly what we've utilized. It's almost like ESSER, and I hate to say that, but if we would potentially ever have to go for a referendum again, we need to make sure that we have the document to support what we've done for the community and for the students and the districts and, you know, everything. That's just my opinion. And I'm sure you've thought about it. I'm just throwing it out there.
Those are fair points.
That's all
I think your Facebook thing would be like you did with the referendum.
Mm-hmm.
Do something like
Oh,
that
sure.
again.
Yeah.
I don't know if a town hall would pay to have a little town hall meeting, maybe at the library or something to get, at least you tried.
Yeah.
You could say we tried, it might be a waste of time, but
Well, I think about the focus group that we had too,
Yeah,
right? That
something-
came and they had this message, and they don't know this yet, probably.
Yeah.
So like even there,
I like the Facebook things, but I think it's easier if just the highlights are on just like one shareable thing. Because then you can just share the photo or the, you know what I'm talking about? Because I don't know that people take the time to really listen to the whole video. So shareable things are really helpful. Highlights, I don't know if you want to do them weekly or daily or whatever that looks like, but then people's feeds will be populated with all different messages.
You always put it in your superintendent corner of photo news too. I mean, I just keep like simple bullet points. So, I mean, because some of that can get kind of cumbersome and kind of like make you go like, huh? This is what happened and how kind of thing. But maybe that would work. I mean, I like the town hall idea if people would come. I mean, or you can always get, you know, the 2 fellows that here were visiting us that one night and gave them our, you know, their options about helping us. Mike Robin and was it Jay Lusty that was here that night? You know, I'm sure they would maybe be interested in spreading the word with their coffee buddies or whomever. I don't know, just throwing ideas out there, but I don't mean it's good news, but.
I think right now, I would be very cautious and careful about talking about anything. Let's let the dust settle on Pinecrest. Right now, that's got everybody's attention. And we don't want to confuse them with more information than they really need right now. So my thought is, we'll just keep plodding ahead, planning, moving, and once Pinecrest is settled, then we start making our move and start getting back out to the public. People I talk to don't even know the school exists, but they know Pinecrest exists. And they know the big problem is Pinecrest. Where are the old people that you're gonna go? You know, and so it's a careful street you wanna walk.
My comments completely, and I respectfully, I don't know that I disagree. I know I disagree because I sorry, I was trying to be very nice, Paul. Because I think the sooner we get ahead of this, if we talk about transparency and where the district has been, like we need to be ahead of it. And we all have different circles, and that I don't hear about Pinecrest in my circle.
You're young yet, just wait.
I'm not going there, Paul. I'm not going there. I'm just saying schools is what I hear a lot about because I'm with the parents in the schools, and so like that's just a different people that I'm exposed to, and so I just feel like it's slightly. I think that the sooner you get ahead of it, the better. I know that right now there's a survey out there in Photo News for Pinecrest of what people want to do, even though the vote has already happened. So I don't know if that will even impact the county or not, but we're separate, and I think we should just move ahead with what we have. That's my thought.
I would say, and I kind of agree with you. I think I started to with Paul, you know, in the beginning, but I guess I look at it almost like a business. One business ain't gonna wait for the other business to decide, see what they're gonna do. You know what I mean? We gotta kind of, I know it's the same money, basically, we're all fighting for, but we can't see what Paul's, you know, and I don't mean literally, but see what one's doing, and then the other one can go ahead. I don't think you can't sustain that.
Yeah.
We kept waiting, so.
And you know, and this is very good news, you know, so it's not like we're doing an ask.
Yeah.
We're just explaining why we're not doing an ask. We have for years.
But you do the ask, aren't you talking about later on?
We may have
you know, I mean, that's, if we're being totally transparent, we can't say we're not gonna do any asks. So.
Yeah.
Are you referring to the capital? Are you referring to the capital? Yeah.
You said 3 years, right? Or are you
Well,
talking about this
we know
year?
we're pretty
That makes
solid
sense.
for 2. Would you agree with that, Dr. Storch?
And when you say 2, this year and next year?
This year and next year, and perhaps even the following, because it would take a per pupil revenue increase, a pretty substantial one to catch up to that low revenue.
So no, you say that, so now you, and I'm jumping ahead,
Yeah.
but when they close, when they combine in Wassa, do you see anything coming this way? I mean, I'm just.
You know, I never thought of that. Someone else brought that up today too.
Because,
perhaps.
I mean, I just look at, I can't see them, what they're gonna do, you know, I look at I guess the sports aspect of it. They had kids, East, I think had 70-some kids try out for volleyball, and West had 90-some. So you can't, there's no way one school can handle that. So I can see people wanting to, I mean, Everest, Mosinee, us 3 are right there, where I can see people wanting to jump ship. And I mean, it would be almost like COVID. We saw an increase when COVID came because we were in class, they went virtual the whole while.
Yeah, that would actually maybe create more problems than it solves for us on several fronts, funding and space. But yeah, it's possible.
And that's been part of our real estate market as well. Inventory's been low in general, but we find more families from Wausau, West and Grid Mountain that are not finding the housing there, moving to the Mosinees and Merrills and Medfords or Tomahawks, especially with the virtual employment. If you can work from home most of the time or all the time, or work on a route where you just have to stop and either pick up a truck once or twice a week or whatever it may be, people have been pretty flexible with that. So I know it's amount of time we're looking at with declining enrollment continuing and some different things that way, but certainly the transparency is something we've talked about for a long time. And you had brought up earlier last winter's worksheet, if you will, the budget sheets. You know, there are some things on there that people are going to ask, are you bringing that back in some sort of order, or do we not need that anymore? So we should be able to answer some of those things. So if the last thing removed you really wish we could have kept, But if we've implemented different solutions, make sure someone knows that here's the solution, and we found continuing that is better than putting that $250,000 back into this. So explain some of those things. It's not like we're foregoing those. Or if we are bringing something back, say that was line such and such on that form, just as that reminder.
So we've started that process. A Google form has been created, sent out to the principals. There's a meeting tomorrow, and then part of that is staff engagement, to get input from the staff.
I have a little different twist. I don't think you even need to talk about this until we decide what we're going to do with Jefferson. Because until we make a decision on Jefferson, the community isn't going to support us.
Well, and this, we're not asking for much of support on it. We're just sharing.
Well, but they aren't going to pay attention to what you're saying. That's my opinion.
Well, I mean, at least we gotta get it out something. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but, you know, for a while, the public and the community, they'd say, oh, you haven't been telling us everything. We don't know what's going on. So at least we can try and say that we did do our due diligence on what we needed to do to get out. And I do have one other question. So the declining enrollment number, because we're so low, and like what you guys were just talking about with the Wausau district and stuff changing, and what you were talking about real estate, what is the cap or the number where you would not be considered declining enrollment anymore?
0, I believe.
0?
Yeah, so it's an average. And so if we had a situation where our enrollment started to decline, that would create some financial hardships for us because we would no longer have that exemption.
So, I mean, did I say that right? Like, so we wouldn't have the exemption if we had 3,000 kids versus 10. That's what I mean.
We would not have that exemption.
Would not. And we don't know that 0 would be the number?
I'm assuming just that would be, anything over that would be not declining.
Okay.
I just picked 0.
Oh.
There may be an actual number, but it feels like 0.
I didn't know this, because like if we're at like 500 right now, that's declining. And if we reached like 3,000 students, we're no longer declining. So.
And by the way, that's a real problem because our projections have us flat and then going slightly up in 5, 6 years without anything in Wausau. So that's the next problem.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Challenge. Next challenge. Problem 2 to me.
Numbers are a 3-year average, right? Enrollment? Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So it's not, if you get 50 kids next year, you're jumping.
Yeah, that wouldn't hurt us so much. It would have to be a trend over 2 or 3 years.
Just the thank you.
Before COVID, the figures that we were getting, NTC gets the figures of enrollment, so we can kind of gauge where we want to go. And at that time, they had us flat by 20 and a slight increase by 23. So I don't know, COVID sent too many people away or what happened, but we were just talking about that at our last meeting. You know, what happened to the numbers? Where'd they go?
Trend of the increase, maybe. Trend of the
Yeah.
increase, maybe.
Anything else?
No.
Any other board member comments or thoughts on this topic? Anything else you'd like to highlight from your superintendent's report? That's where we're kind of lingering, right?
I'll just ask the group, the way this is presented, is that logical? Does the math seem to work, the time frame, the reasoning? Because we obviously have some work to do on it, but I mean, that is in essence our story. So.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the committee reports. We'll start with the Facilities Committee. Attached we have the draft minutes from the September 6th committee meeting. Ron Liberty is chair, and other members who were at that meeting are here for questions. Any questions for the Facilities Committee tonight? Chad?
I just saw at the end when I was glancing through that you talked a little bit about the Pine River and the water issue. How's that all going there?
Dale's getting some estimates on a re-drill on a well. The DNR recommended we try the northeast corner, northwest corner.
Yeah, when the hydrologist did his assessment of the soil composition and stuff like that, they had some successes in other areas of the country with remediating PFAS, and the recommendation is to drill a well in the northeast corner and go down at least 80 feet with the casing, and then 1.5 times past that, and they feel there's a substrate down there where they could get water that's a different vein or different aquifer from what we have out there. So I contacted 3 different well drilling companies right now, and so far 2 have got back to me, but they all say that they're going to be way into spring before they would be able to do anything. So we still have to know what we're going to do. We still have to figure the cost of it to see if it's feasible. And according to the DNR's recommendations, they give us a step checklist of, this is your first option. And then if that's not feasible, then you can look at point of use remediation. If that's not feasible, then you look at whole building system remediation. So we just need to put our numbers together and see what the cost impact would be. There are some funding sources available through Head Start has some funding sources available. There's some funding sources available through some other grant opportunities to help assist with that. But once we see what the financial impact is going to be, then we can look at the whole scenario and make an educated decision. Because truthfully, the survey results could lead us in a different direction. So we just kind of have to put all the data together and make a good informed decision.
Paul, are we legally bound by any way with this well if we make a decision tomorrow to sell Prairie Middle School? Are we bound legally any way to have to certify better water?
No, but we have to disclose what we found.
Okay.
The same thing as we have with our lead and copper and bacteria and nitrate samples that we're required to take, because it's other than non-municipal water system that, for general public. Now, if it's sold to a private entity, it's a different story. There's no regulations for private entities now. That's why homeowners aren't required to test for PFAS or nitrates, but only municipal systems and other public drinking water sources. Thank you.
Any additional questions for our facilities committee for those draft minutes provided from September 6th? Good questions. Thank you for the updates. We'll move to the Finance Human Resources Committee. The draft minutes from September 13 committee meeting was provided. Ron Liberty is chair, and additional members of the committee are available for questions. Any questions for our Finance HR Committee? Any questions for Finance HR? If not, we'll move to CTP, or Curriculum Technology Pupil Services. The draft minutes from the last committee meeting, September 13, was provided. Paul Crew as chair, and additional members of the CTP committee are here and available for questions. Anyone have questions as far as board members are concerned for our CTP committee this evening? Any questions for our CTP committee? Hearing none, we'll keep moving on our agenda. Unfinished business, we do not have anything in that section, so we'll get started with the Board of Education business. First item on our agenda under that topic tonight will be the approval of School Perceptions Community Survey with the topic summary sheet provided from Shannon Murray.
So coming around is a paper copy, if that's easier for you. There is a copy to the draft and the link. So probably about 10 days ago, I sent the draft to everyone to kind of start putting some eyes on it, give me some feedback that we could share with the group. I had very limited feedback, which is okay. and have made some minor edits. Chad, we've downgraded you from board secretary to board member, sorry.
Thank you.
And then Kendra very aptly brought up the question about why is there no operations thing on there, and we can certainly discuss that. I took that off the draft simply because it appears that we would have no need to go, and I didn't want to confuse things. So I took that question off. This, I think, is draft version like 9. We've met on this pretty regularly as new information has come in, whether it's our mill rates or our neighbors' mill rates or whatever the information is. And so the purpose of this survey is to gauge community support for any capital projects, capital referendums, and at what level. We get some other feedback. So this has been has had a lot of eyes on it, whether it's Myron or Gray or School Perceptions or myself or our group, and so I'd open it up for feedback. The goal, of course, is to, you know, if we were to look at a capital something in April referendum, we'd want to back that out from 70 days, and that gives us through January to have a question of the clerk, which, you know, so we're kind of like backing things out. So if we're going to survey the community, we should probably get into that.
I am okay being wrong, so I'm just asking you guys to like check me if I need to be checked. But I feel like the whole introduction, if I were to read it, I don't know that it would, and knowing that I know that we have extra funding, I struggle with that. Like, I don't know if it's going to make me, I don't know. I'm just struggling if we're going to come back and say we don't need it operational after we've been asking one for 2 years and we don't even mention that on here. And I read that, I don't know that I would have good taste. But I'm okay being wrong, and if no one else takes that negatively, I'm okay with that.
So in your defense, Kendra, that language was there with the operations question in it.
Okay.
And so it does have that feel.
Okay.
And right or wrong, that feel has remained. And so we could wordsmith that. The problem is that I would have to potentially add pages to this to explain what I just explained to you on the slide.
I'm not, yeah, I don't.
And I don't know how to work on that. But I can share that with Bill Foster. And, it does have a tone like we're still needing to cut things on the operations side, which we're not.
Yeah.
And then it also, I don't know if the average person understands or recognizes the difference between operations and capital referendums.
Right.
You know the one figure, the final and the taxes.
That's my only.
That's a very fair question, or a very, very fair comment. I'll ask Bill if we can kind of maybe do some more speaking on that.
Chad?
So my comment's gonna sound very conflicting with myself. How did we get this far? As a board, we discussed what we need to do at Jefferson. This doesn't fix the Jefferson issue. According to this is telling us the only way we can go to Jefferson is if we do an operational referendum, in my field. I know why we did it. I understand that. But, so, okay, let's say we do this, it comes back, we can go to referendum. We did this once before with the referendum twice. We all had the good feel we're gonna pass a referendum, and it didn't pass. So now we're still for another year. So now we're gonna go on year 4 with Jefferson being empty. This doesn't fix the original problem what we set to start. It's what are we gonna do at Jefferson?
Although it could.
It could,
Yeah.
but it could not too. Because we're gonna still sit here with Jefferson empty enough. My thing is, I don't understand why Jefferson stayed empty. Like, for 3 years as a school, to me, I didn't do my job as a school board member, leaving us have an empty school for 3 years.
Fair.
And now it could go on year 4 almost. Even with a referendum, it could go on year 4. Because it could take a year to get it. I don't see it getting in shape in 3 months.
No, in fact, they've laid out the timeframes with us, and Bill, you can speak to this better than I can, but if let's say it comes out resounding, yes, we support this, we go to the community. They supported in the referendum. Then we're talking months on architectural engineering, months on.
You probably, if we got support and passed a referendum in April and started design work, we would probably have about 5 months of design work and maybe almost a full year of construction before you'd give us switch things.
So we're gonna go on 5 years of medical school.
It's possible.
And
Until we
then
find out.
But, okay, I'm not only cut you off, I'm just, and now we're saying in 3 years, or 2 years, we might have to ask for a referendum, and Jefferson's still gonna win, possibly. This doesn't get to our, it doesn't fix what we tried, what we intended out to fix.
Sure.
This doesn't answer, and honestly, it doesn't answer, I don't think any board members question of, what are we gonna do at Jefferson? And
So I would say this does answer that pretty clearly. That and so we started this process because Jefferson is empty, and so we started by having discussions about, is Jefferson the one we should dispose of, for lack of a better term? And you talk about age and systems and all those kind of things. So you do the study for the whole thing, and you find out, okay, Jefferson might not be the one that we should be getting rid of, and we look at other options and alternatives. And so. That through the focus group process, it's like the goal was we want to make the best use of our best facilities. That's kind of logical. And so out of that work came the solution of Frizzle to Jefferson Neck to Jefferson VDA, and take buildings offline and cut down on the operations and the maintenance of those things. Potentially, central office to the high school, which would take another building, actually potentially now 3, 4 total. Well, 5 if you count the double. So it is really a solution to Jefferson, just in a roundabout way. Disposing of Jefferson would have been super easy. It would have been a mistake. And actually, Chad, you should. That very opinion. Like we.
I agree. That's why I said I agree with what this found.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean.
Yeah, how we got there is a little sloppy if you look at.
Because we're not, but so we're, and I guess my thing is, I look at, okay, we're looking at asking for 16 million, we're at like 36 million. I don't think that's what we ever set out to do. At least that's what I didn't set out to do. I wanted to know what to do at Jefferson so that when we were, originally this was set, we were supposed to tell the public by April what we were going to do at Jefferson before we went to a referendum.
Yeah, that was the original goal, yes.
And so, I mean, that goal just ended 3 days ago, or 13 days ago, when you found out we weren't going to have to ask for a referendum. That goal should have never changed, and I don't know when it changed. To me, it changed somehow without my knowledge that we weren't going to decide what to do at Jefferson before we went to referendum. That was always the goal. Because we were going to rush it for the November one if we decided to go November. Then we decided to pause it. Hey, we don't have to rush. We can finish it whenever. And then we got till April to decide. We can tell the public what we're going to do. So now, somehow, even if we would have went to referendum, we wouldn't have had that answer.
We may have had an answer in terms of we could have had a plan. So if the feedback comes back on this saying, yes, let's do this Pine River to Jefferson thing, at least we could present a plan moving forward. We wouldn't have had anybody in there by then. That would have been super ambitious and not doable. But that's better than no plan. At least we would have had a plan to communicate. May it have been enough? I don't know. Maybe.
Like I said, I was going to sound very kind of.
Yeah,
and I just, where we started from and where we're ending is just, to me, we started in right field and we ended up outside the park in left field, in my mind, where we originally started to look at.
Yeah. So I think the vacant Jefferson gave us an opportunity to look at all of it. And so when you start looking at the conditions of different buildings, and we're replacing what's coming up on the agenda with boilers at Washington coming up soon. And so it gave us an opportunity to assess all of our things and make a decision that was the best decision moving forward in the long term. And I understand exactly what you're saying. After we lost in November, we started talking about Jefferson as being an anchor, on that decision or on that vote, and so that's why we started this process.
else, Chad, or Jack? Jacqueline had her hand up as well.
You kind of said what I was going to say a little bit to the sense. So I guess I agree with your initial input, Kendra. To me, like I was like, oh, okay, this starts off, and then it doesn't really fit like what the plan may be moving forward or where we're going. So I appreciate that you probably agree and that'll change. And you kind of said what I was going to say about Jefferson. To me, I just feel like it's a domino effect, but we've started it on different ends. And I think what happens, like with people in our community that aren't immersed in all of it, or those that aren't having to like make the decisions, it's really easy to just like look at the immediate fire instead of pulling back and seeing things big picture. So you're right, Chad, like it probably feels like we were supposed to address this one thing, but it sort of feels like an episode of Fixer Upper where like you get in there and you're like, we need to fix the plumbing in this house because like our toilets aren't working, and then you start to do that and next thing you know you learn all these other things. So it's sort of like we've been met with having to look at what's the smart thing for the long run versus the initial ask. And I feel like as things kind of progress, we've universally been blessed with a lot of different things that are allowing us to get there. But yeah, I mean, survey-wise, I do feel like to me as a reader, outside of the initial intro, it does answer somewhat of the plan and the Jefferson question. I guess logistically, the only other thing I would change is like, I wish there was just a little bit more order here, whether you organized it by your build or funding needed or alphabetical. Like my mind likes to look at things categorically.
Sure,
so like
sure.
that, I feel like I'm like, oh, I don't want to pay attention to that. But if there was an order to it, I might actually read through the lines a little bit more. I like that it explains the declining enrollment thing and some of the other reasons, and I feel like that could maybe go back to the tie-ins in the beginning of what we're going to be asking for. Yeah, I mean overall I think it's good.
Chad, to your, if we were to change that intro, because we'll change it anyways per Kendra's suggestions. If we were to explicitly try to connect the Jefferson thing to where we're at, like acknowledge that this started out as a vacant Jefferson issue, is that helpful?
I think for me it would, but I don't. Out there it don't matter because they don't come to the meetings and hear us. So I mean, it's huh?
We'll read it though.
Well, but now that was going to be my other question. This is one of the longest surveys I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, so
Are we going to get? Is the reader going to actually take their time and look through them?
So,
and that's just.
Yeah. So schools' perceptions, their facility surveys, their operation surveys are always in the 8-page range.
Okay.
So that's kind of their magic number.
To your question, Shannon, to the board or to Chad, that was the note I made in the intro statement, modifying that to what our start of the facilities process was about Jefferson. Why not put that in there if we're cleaning that up and just say, yeah, this is what started. We did an entire facility study and the recommendations for our entire district came out and this is what it looks like. This was the end product. And here are our options to do this instead of in one increment to think about this over time. Perhaps a statement in there that keeping in mind that this may not be a next month answer, but this will take some time based on other things. I don't want to convolute that, and I do know that both Foster and School Perceptions have their methods of getting out the proper data from the survey people, but we do want to use it as an educational tool like you have in the rest of the survey also. So that was my note to piggyback with what Chad had already said, is we're modifying the intro to put something there.
I like that. I think you could easily add it in when you say the voters rejected the referendums. We asked, and this is why. You said you wanted a response to Jefferson, and then say, here's part of the plan for looking at that. Could be like a sentence.
Thanks, Jack. Paul, then Ron.
We've got our hand up before.
Okay.
Oh,
Kendra?
sorry, I have already talked, but the only thing I would say, and maybe it's not in the survey, and I'm sure it's something that you already have in your mind, but like, whether it's a Facebook or like a reminder of saying, hey, don't forget to do the survey, or like we had a focus group, because I think it's important to mention that we have people in the community that's been part of this, and unless I overlooked it, I did not see that called out, but I could be very wrong, again. And that's all I have.
Ron?
Just taken from Kendra's, start out, you take everything off the top, and you start out with, we have aging facilities, MAPS is not asked to vote to approve the capital referendum in 128. You start with that. You get rid of all of the operational referendum things at all because we're not doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think we want to paint the picture. We made reductions, responded to our budget. I do like connecting the field referendum to the Jefferson. That's my opinion. I will share these comments when we're done getting comments. I'll share them with Bill Foster and ask him to kind of to use his expertise and experience to draft something out.
I was wrong, don't mention focus group in there. Yep.
The other thing is, in the intro, like the bolded statement that you're saying is that we've got millions of dollars without having a significant impact for those we serve. I kept waiting for the operational S then too.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's the most important thing. But and like Kendra's point, you said, well, why are we not asking for dollars back then to implement those things? I feel like I maybe would use the positive news versus the negative. When I read this, it just sounds like bad, bad, bad. And I feel like if we are in a positive position right now, like we leverage like the good work that we're doing, that we are balanced, you know what I mean? And if we're going to have an ask, then this is the reason why, because you've asked us to deal with Jefferson. So we can either continue to stay balanced and maintain these services and adjust as things go along year after year, but know the degradation of our system or of our buildings will happen, and you've asked us to deal with that, so now here we are dealing with that. But in a positive way, because people want to read something like that they want to be a part of, not like, oh gosh, here we go again. You know what I mean? I want to read something like, oh, we're going to do something great here. We're going to build upon what we have and make it better. Pink paper?
Jeff?
Sent it to?
Is anywhere in here that say what it would be for how long?
Yeah, so
I
it
see
says-
the borrow rate is for 20 years, but
Yeah, it would be a 20-year. It would be a 20-year project.
because I always thought they said it was. I thought in our meeting, I mean, that's one reason because I missed it. I thought in my mind I thought I had 10 years in there. I thought it was like they said building referendums everywhere.
How about the opposite of you, Chad? I thought it was 25 years.
I'm just asking. I mean, because I know I caught now where it says, what does a facility referendum look like? Would you support, assuming 20-year borrowing? That's only where a place I see reference 20 years.
Maybe we should make that a little bit assume the 20-year plan. I'm sure people are seeing that.
The only other thing, as you talked about it being likely, and I don't know if this is an option or if the reason they do this is because it's like fiscally responsible to send anyone out, but if you feel like it's long, could we just cut off the last pages where it's now making suggestions or giving information about Prairie River and just focus on this list of plans? You know what I mean? Like you start off with the Jefferson, gauge people on that, and then see what they, before you kind of give this other page 7. What, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
So
you just leave that off.
What we can do,
And then do another one after the fact?
I think the purpose of that, and that came out of the focus groups, the future of the RMS and we need to potentially build somewhere else or however. I think that one page will put that issue to rest maybe until I'm in Pinecrest. If the students one way or the other. So I think, I appreciate that it's an extra page. The concept is, do we continue to invest in the old building? You know, and so I think that my gut feeling is that community support for that building is very high. So that might just, then we can
Well, and they're not
move
gonna
on from that.
understand the pool, and they're not gonna understand wrap their head around that the pool would stay. They're not gonna.
Maybe you capture
It doesn't mean the problem's gone.
No.
The discussion.
Maybe you capture that in just the title, like, do we, and then people might be intrigued to read them, I don't know, or they'll just answer the question.
Sure. Well, in my mind, the one problem we're not getting by with Jefferson is the emotion. That's a very emotional school with people that taught there, that worked there, that attended school there. And in their mind, the delaying has been great because there's a chance that Jefferson is going to stay. And I've heard this from a lady in the morning a number of times now. So I don't think we're being chastised for not taking action on Jefferson. I think we can show that we're doing due diligence and what's best for the school system itself. And if we come out now with the survey and say this is what we want to do, this will help. It might just swing the thing over for a lot of people. I don't know.
Anyone else have some additional thoughts or questions or discussion on this? Linda?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had to step up for a second, but, and I mean, maybe the survey may just backfire on us all completely together. I mean, if we're really not actually needing to go for operation or other stuff, maybe we don't do the survey anymore at this point until we are actually really going to need to go for operation. Because the way it sounds, we're going to be okay for 2 to 3 years. I mean, unless, like I said at the finance meeting the other day, unless this is just going to be a Band-Aid to just get us by, but then maybe, yeah, with that extra money that we're getting, it's great, but maybe we still need the operation rent. Maybe we still need the other one. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when that money's gone, it's gone, or we're going to have to cut 30 positions again, or, like next year just to stay stable, or the following year. So I guess the question is are we, do we really send this out when we're not going to go for a referendum, or do we and then get leverage to see what they would do in 3 years for us?
So this one, depending on the feedback we get from the community, would tell us whether or not we should proceed with a capital referendum versus the operations referendum, which is taken out of the table. And it's really kind of two things. So we have the funding that we get from the state now, the good news that we had just discussed earlier, affords us the opportunity to buy textbooks and keep teachers and maybe do some maintenance kind of stuff. Dale, would you agree with that? Our operations referendums and our budget does not let us replace them on anything virtually, especially in the current state. So this is kind of like a different thing. And the nice thing about this is that capital referendums can be spread out over, so the tax impact is small. And we had a discussion, Kelly and I, last week prior to getting the update from the state, where your best value is going operations and capital combined because it's cheaper. And I asked the guy from PMA, I'm like, how in the world would I ever explain that to anybody? You can't.
No.
Because the way the debt, the fees and all this kind of stuff carries over, and so it's like, if you do them separately, it costs you $1. If you do them together, 77 cents. It's like, how could we possibly do it? But that's the right thing to do prior to us finding out we don't need it. But, so I did this. So I appreciate what you're saying, but I do think that this is kind of like a separate matter.
Okay.
And these are big ticket items that need to be spread out, and we need to solve the Jefferson thing,
Right.
whatever that is. So.
Thank you.
And I'm guessing that you have that meeting tomorrow, talking to many members of the alt team, and I'm guessing they're not all going to come back and say, you know, let's all put it in Dale's budget. I'm guessing they all have things to enhance their building as far as education, and not the roofing and the playgrounds and the parking lots and things. I could be wrong, you've got a lot of people that have ideas, but I'm guessing that's not where they're looking first.
So I will take these suggestions back to Bill. And the question is, how do I run it back past you, because we're kind of up against time.
How long do you think it would take you to?
Pretty fast. I mean, we could do that in a couple days. And I don't know if it's a matter of...
So let's re-step through. If this would have been approved as presented, step through what Bill's team was going to do next. So if the board had approved it with no revisions, how soon was this supposed to get into the recipient's hands for the survey?
So mid-October was the mail date.
Okay.
And I think there's even deadlines on here.
November 6th.
November 6th.
November 6th to be returned, right?
Yeah. So I think the goal was mid-October to get it out into the, you know, and first we got to get it finally printed and maybe go direct and all those kind of things. So there's steps. But it feels like for some reason I want to say the 11th or the 15th of October was kind of those time frames to get that rolling.
So we have probably a 2-week window for revisions, printing. So what I was trying to picture is when is the next board meeting, and it's certainly not within that time frame. It's actually the end of the month of October. Right.
I could send via email the intro redone. So if I'm hearing everything really correctly, really the big revision within the body of it is the 20-year, make that a little more prominent. So if we were to redo the intro, I could send it to everybody and we could figure out a way to get some feedback.
We look at availability and get together next week.
We could. So let me do this. Let me talk to Bill in the morning.
It's pretty important to do this, right?
And we'll get this, we'll get rolling on the redoing that intro, and then we'll game plan about getting back together for you.
So should we table that item then? Until another day?
Yeah, we can table it. I appreciate the feedback and the input, and we'll make those changes.
Official motion to table.
Yeah, sure.
Linda.
I make a motion to table the approval of the school perceptions community survey until a later date.
A motion by Linda, second by Nubbs. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions?
I do just want to acknowledge that I appreciate the comments, and that these are really complicated issues, especially with the changes to the low revenue ceiling and the politics of Jefferson and all this kind of stuff. So I appreciate that we're getting thoughtful on this.
Yeah, it's been a lot of good work and a lot of good discussion, and I just want to do this right. That's very imperative. Next on our agenda this evening is replacement of the Washington Elementary School boilers. Attached with a topic summary sheet from Dale Bergman. Facilities Committee has a recommended motion. Anyone willing to make a motion on this topic? Ron?
Make a motion to approve the boiler replacements at Washington Elementary.
Motion by Ron. Do we have a second? We have a second by Paul. Do we have any discussion on the motion or the topic tonight?
Did this come from the facility study? Or did you knew that was bad?
This was an issue we had prior.
And they knew it was, and they came up with it bad too? I'm just, when they did the, okay.
We have a plan.
It's our plan.
Any additional questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously on a voice vote. Next item on our agenda tonight is the fiscal year 23 evacuation drills. Our topic summary sheet was provided by Dale Bergman and a recommended motion from our facilities committee. We have a motion on this topic. Paul?
I move to accept the evacuation drill logs and submit them to the Department of Justice Office of School Safety.
Motion by Paul, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ron. Any discussion or questions on this motion or topic? Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. The next item on our agenda is the amended CESA 9 contracted services agreement for speech and language pathologist services. Easy for me to say, right? Topic summary sheet provided by Amber Haluska and a recommended motion from our Finance Human Resources Committee. Anyone willing to make a motion on this topic this evening? Ron?
Make a motion to approve the amended CESA 9 contract to include speech language pathologist services.
We have a motion by Ron. Do we have a second? We have a second by Paul. With that motion, and topic, do we have any discussion or questions tonight? Questions or discussion on this motion or topic? Kendra?
I just want to confirm, the 71,000 is the total for just this position, added to what we already approved, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So if I may, D and E are both positions that we were not able to fill with our own hires. We're going to CESA for those in a lesser role, or a lesser FTE, I guess you would say. But yes.
Okay. Okay.
Any additional discussion or
Are we
questions?
still posting it though? Or are we not? Just take it off?
Yeah. We'll take another run at both of them in the spring.
Any additional discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. On the agenda, we move down to the amended CESA 9 contracted services agreement for instructional coach services. Topic summary sheet was provided by Amanda Patterson and a recommended motion from our administration. Anyone willing to make a motion on this topic this evening? Ron? We have one.
Jacqueline.
Jacqueline?
Oh, okay. I recommend a motion to amend CESA 9 contract to include instructional coach services.
I'll second.
A motion by Jacqueline, a second by Ron. Any discussion or questions on this topic? I believe this is what Shannon was just discussing when he said D and E, which was our agenda placeholders as far as strategies to fill any openings we've had in the district and to work together to come up with solutions.
And so I'll explain this one even further because this is a later ad and didn't go through HR finance. This one is important to help us meet or get closer to meeting our AGR requirements with the state of Wisconsin, which is the class size reduction at Washington. And so we worked with CESA for some time to try to come up with a solution where this could be contracted out that would help us meet that. So the contract, the solution came out post HR finance. That's what it's about. Same thing, we couldn't find an instructional coach on our own. But we have to have it.
Any additional discussion or questions on this particular motion or topic? Hearing none, all those looking to approve, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is the approval of a permanent Special Olympic head coach position. Attached was a topic summary sheet from our Activities Director, Christopher Hahn. Recommended motion coming from our Finance HR Committee. Do we have a motion this evening on this topic? Chad?
Motion to approve the position of Special Olympics head coach at a salary of $4,700 paid from the special education flow-through.
Motion by Chad, do we have a second? Second by Paul. Any discussion or questions on this motion or topic? Nub?
What is the flow-through from?
Special ed flow through, so it's funded by special ed money. So this is a position that we've had for many, many years.
Special Olympics fund?
Yes. Special education flow through covers Special Olympics. And,
Any additional discussion or questions on this topic or the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is the Merrill High School baseball dugout donation with the topic summary sheet from Dale Bergman and a recommended motion from our facilities committee. Do we have a motion on this topic? Nubs?
Move to approve the donation of labor and materials to update the baseball field dugouts in Merrill High School.
Motion by Nubs, do we have a second? Second by Chad. Any discussion or questions on this motion or topic this evening? Any discussion, questions on the motion?
Just a thank you to them for donating it.
Thank you. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is the Marshfield Clinic Health System donation. The topic summary sheet and donation form was completed by Amber Luska. Due to the fact that the donation is over the $2,500 limit set in policy 7230, this donation does come to the board separately for approval, and there is a recommended motion. If someone is willing to make a motion on this topic. Paul?
I move to approve the donation of funds from Marshfield Clinic Health System, valued at $2,807 for the Botvid Life Skills Program in the Merrill Area Public Schools.
We have a motion by Paul. We have a second. Second by Ron. Any discussion or questions on this motion or topic? Any discussion or questions on this motion or topic? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is the Merrill Football Booster Club Zone Blocking Sheet donation. Topic summary and donation form was provided from our Activities Director, Chris Hahn. Same reminder, due to the fact that the donation is over $2,500 limit set in policy 7230, the donation does come to the board separately versus in consent agenda or other means. There is a recommended motion. If someone is willing to make a motion on this topic. Ron?
Make a motion to approve the donation of the zone blocking chute from the Merrill Football Booster Club valued at $3,305 as upgraded practice equipment for the high school football team.
Motion by Ron. Do we have a second? Second by Paul. Any discussion or questions on this motion or this topic by board members? Any discussion or questions on the motion or topic? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is the personnel report, including hirings, recruitments, resignations, retirements, etc. The report is put together by Dr. Kelly Strike and her team. There is a recommended motion if someone is willing to make a motion on this topic. Paul?
I move to approve the attached personnel report contingent upon release of contract for hirings and upon the satisfaction of appropriate liquidated damages for resignations if applicable.
A motion by Paul. Do we have a second?
One second.
So we have a second by Ron. Do we have any discussion or questions on this motion or this topic?
May I?
Yes.
We're laughing. Kelly and I, we all like things really tight, you know, and this is the toughest HR year, sloppiest, not sloppiest, most confusing personnel reports we've had, because I'll point out the family service worker, that's a person that we hired as a social worker that needs to do one thing to get a license. And so we have to kind of make up that name because we can't call it that. We have people that want to go to this place and we're waiting to fill that position. And so we apologize that it's sloppy. We don't like that at all. Kelly sent me an email or text last night. I think the term was ugly. And we don't like to roll that way. So my apologies that we have a lot of moving parts. That's just the labor market we're in. It is tough. So that's why we're doing CESA stuff, you know, and contracts and amendments. We apologize, but this is where we're at. So we're trying to be forthright and transparent, and this is as clean as it gets, I guess, is probably the best way to say that.
Does everybody have an issue with people leaving this late?
Yeah.
I've been on here, I don't know if Nub's was the longest one, but
yeah.
I mean, I never seen, the 3 years now, I haven't seen anybody leave this late with this many people after they sign their contracts and stuff.
Yeah, it's a very different market right now. This is the worst we've seen it. We've had discussions with people about coming to Merrill that were in front of kids. They were working already, you know, and people would entertain those discussions. So I think, you know, we've had some discussions about supply issue and demand, addressing it and how to take care of some of those kind of things. But yeah, this is as bad as it's been. Other places still have many openings. A district to our east has several high school Wisconsin virtual school courses in core areas because they can't fill positions. So thankfully, ours are, you know, not in core areas, et cetera, et cetera. Some electives that we have to fill at the middle school, which is still a burden. But yeah, it's going late.
Well, do liquidated damages, are they a real consideration for some of these people, or if they want to go, they just go and pay the damages?
Yeah, they pay them, and then their new employer pays them just as we do.
I was going to say, and conversely, if we really need somebody, we have to offer to pay those, and as a board, we've provided that.
We are one of the few districts, courtesy of Kelly, that require that the departing employee pays, because it really is an income tax situation. So it's their own, how they get reimbursed is up to them, but we do make them individually pay.
Any additional discussions or questions on the motion or this topic? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Before I ask for a motion, I'll ask if anyone wants anything pulled from the consent agenda to be dealt with individually. Nubs?
I'll abstain from August 16th.
I will make a note of that, and I'll ask for additional abstentions in a moment. Anyone want anything pulled specifically to be voted on separately or discussed separately? If not, I would ask at this time if someone is willing to make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Kendra?
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through C, which include minutes of the August 10th, 2023, August 16th, 2023, and August 30th, 2023 meetings, receipts of September 8th, 2023, annual meeting and budget hearing minutes, claims, vouchers, and receipts totaling $2,259,936.21, and donations totaling $2,821.88.
Motion by Kendra, a second by Paul. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Any abstentions?
From the August 30th, I understand.
All right, Ron?
I'm going to abstain from the August 10th.
All right, we've heard from Nubs on the August 13th. Chad?
I'll abstain from the August 16th minutes.
All right. Motion carries with the noted abstentions. Thank you. This time we will see if there's anyone that has items for future meetings. As we talk about here, these are things we do keep a running list of things that our board is concerned with for the district overall. And there are things that we either take back to committees or bring just to the board as a whole. Is there any items for future meetings that we've thought of in the last month here? Otherwise, we will continue on. Just that reminder, give a week or so notice before that next committee meeting, maybe even 2, to provide that to get on that next agenda. Feel free to reach out to Shannon and myself also for the next meeting. As far as tomorrow goes, there is a radio program on Thursdays at approximately 8:15 a.m. every week. Blue Jay 730 Radio has members of the Merrill Area Public School District on there, and tomorrow Shannon and I will be on there talking about tonight's meeting. Just a reminder on future meetings, dates and times. The Policy Committee meeting is next being held on Monday, October 2nd, 4:30 p.m. in the boardroom. CTP, which is the Curriculum Technology Pupil Services Committee, next meets Wednesday, October 11th at 4:30 p.m. in the boardroom. Finance Human Resources Committee meets immediately following that date of Wednesday, October 11th, starting no sooner than 5 p.m. in the boardroom. And the next regular board meeting will be Wednesday, October 25th at 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom. Shannon, did you want to mention anything with the WASB fall meeting? Or just that reminder of also state convention coming up in January?
Yeah, both, actually. So we do have, if everybody's interested, then can join us. Or join me, I guess it is. There's no us. So far it's just me. So we have the WASB regional meeting in Wausau on the evening of the 6th, I want to say. I don't know, the 6th. The 3rd, because there's a calendar invite that everybody has. It'd be great to have some board representation there. It's all school board superintendents from essentially our CESA that are there. So if anybody is interested in joining me, that'd be great to have you. And then for those of you that are interested in joining us for the State Education Convention at the end of January, please consider that as well, because we'd love to have you at that. It's a good conference, a lot of great breakouts and sections and time well spent. So if you can attend either of those, that'd be great.
All right. Thank you for those updates and that plug for upcoming events. At this time, I would ask if someone is willing to make a motion to adjourn. So moved. Motion by Nubbs, second by Jacqueline. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. I'm not going to give Ron the opportunity to abstain. So.